Well, hi, and welcome to the Rise and Thrive podcast. We are here with our weekly Sipsang segments where we're recapping what we discussed last night during the Sipsang. For those of you that don't know, Sipsang is our weekly online conscious wine group where we take on diverse topics while enjoying a wine paired with that topic. And last night we covered the topic of doubt. Tim, why don't you let us know why you chose doubt, and then we'll dive in.
Yeah, sure, Jade. Man, doubt. Doubt is like the great paralyzer of people. So many people seem like when I'm, something I've learned through my coaching practice and just living my own life and just being aware of and having, conscious conversations with, the people that I know and love in my life. Doubt is this ever-present kind of threat, if you will, that people seem to always be wrestling with. No matter what level they're playing at, right? They could be in a lot of pain or they could be having a lot of success in their life, but they still meet up with these doubts. And I was actually looking through Brendon Burchard's book, The Motivation Manifesto. Mm-hmm. He has a great chapter called We Shall Defeat the Demons. So, of course, he's talking about the inner demons, and he's not talking about, having some kind of walk-in by an evil entity per se. These are just like our subconscious programmings that cause us to have doubtful thoughts about our abilities, and then we act out on those doubtful thoughts in a way that supports that doubt, and that ends up kind of paralyzing us and eventually separating us from each other. So there's a bit of a model of it that we looked at last night, where we learned that if you're doubting yourself, it's really easy to start getting into elements of procrastination and stop taking action in this thing because we just don't believe that do it or that we're worthy of doing it, which is even worse kind of wraparound. And then if we keep on going down that path, we will basically choose ignorance over learning something effective that could handle the doubt and the inaction. And ultimately what ends up happening is people will then isolate themselves and separate themselves and divide themselves from others. And I think that's that real sweet spot for people to develop addictive tendencies to a substance or to a state of being.
Right. Yeah.
So wanted to have that conversation with you guys because there's so many beautiful minds in this group.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we landed on having a really great discussion about depression. We actually had a guest last night, and she brought a lot of really interesting things forward from her own journey through dealing with that. So that was really cool to hear her perspective on that.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And doubt and depression just so interlaced, right? And it's an interesting one. So, but if you start using, there are antidotes for these things.
But yeah, the one thing that really stuck with me was, if you're feeling doubtful, just continue taking action.
Yes.
Right. And that speaks to me very deeply because I can relate to when I've done that, and I can relate to when I haven't done that.
Okay. And when you haven't done it, haven't taken action,
there's very dark times when I haven't.
Yes.
right. Because you start going down that spiral. It's a literal downward spiral.
And when you go down that spiral, Jade, when you went down in those moments, do you feel like being around people, talking with people, connecting with people?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not, no. Right? So it evidences that that's where the isolation goes, and then we end up start self-justifying our own little isolation, right? Which means that usually we'll flip into some kind of blame and judgment of the world, and we'll project it out, which will support the reason why we're isolated.
Right. And then, of course, you don't want to feel lonely. So you're going to look for people who are in a similar state and start commiserating with them.
Absolutely.
Right. So, if you're the type of person who's worked hard to level up the type of people you hang out with, and you start going down this spiral, it can be a very challenging place to be because you find yourself not wanting to reach out to them, depending on how well you've crafted that circle.
Absolutely. And I think I like the word you used, craft. It is important to craft it. Like it is important to get around people that don't Like I'm very, very wary of sympathy and even empathy, quite frankly, as you know, because I think there are better choices like compassion and even self-actualization. Because if I feel sympathetic towards you, I'm actually coming down into your pity party, if you will. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean that, you know, if you have enough wherewithal, you can go down and meet somebody where they're at. But as long as you have the consciousness to and skills to kind of, come on, let's have a walk this way. Let's see what's up here.
Yeah.
You know? But a lot of people just don't have that fortitude and that experience to be able to do that. I'd just rather feel bad for you than anything
Interesting.
else.
Yeah. So similar to last week, we came up with a word and a word that can help pull us out when we're kind of stewing in doubt. And now I'm a poet, which is cool too.
I've always been a poet, Jade. Just didn't know it.
You know what? I actually forget the 2 middle letters from our words. So why don't I pass this back over to you and you should go through it? Because I'm going to be like, I forget.
Well, let's start with the 4 that we talked about that are on the doubt side, the demon side, if you will, the things that trip us up, the inhibitions, if you will. Because the first one is the insecurity, which is which is doubt, really, right? So when we're feeling doubt, we have a sense of that we're really feeling insecure about something. All right. So insecurity, and then we have inaction. All right. So when we're feeling insecure about something, then we lead to paralysis, procrastination, just inaction of some way or form, one way, shape, or form. Mm-hmm. And then the third thing that we'll do is we'll start justifying our inaction, okay, and come up with stories and start projecting that out into the world, making things wrong, and blame is really ripe and
a classic statement when you know somebody's in that space is, you just don't understand.
You just don't understand. You just don't understand. You don't get it, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, and that leaves you in a place of ignorance. Mm. When we stop using curiosity to seek our way out of it, right? So we have insecurity, then inaction, then ignorance, and our last one is isolation, right? So these are the 4 kind of aspects that I like working with now, that I'm developing the idea around. And then what we'd want is antidotes to those, mm-hmm. right? And the antidotes are very much inspired by Brendon Burchard's work. And so the antidote to insecurity or doubt is to develop faith, mm-hmm. which sounds simple, and it's not, right?
Well, and even in the explanation of it last night, we discovered that, there's multiple ways to define what faith means to people.
Absolutely. And one of the big errors that I think we pointed out last night is people usually have faith in something, which is different than having faith.
Right.
Right. Because if we have faith in something, it's something that we're already being seduced by some kind of externalization and separation, right? Mm-hmm. If I have belief in something out there, then I don't have to worry about what's going on in here. Whereas instead, we want to embody the energy of faith, right? We want to teach and train our body what faith feels like, which utilizes imagination, which actually could be another one of the antidotes, is to explore imagination in a healthy way. Because when we're in that doubt and fearful place, we will use imagination in the opposite direction. So anyways, faith is the antidote for the first step of feeling insecure and doubtful. The next one, the antidote for the inaction, of course, is action. Mm-hmm. And that's really funny because, like, as you mentioned, when you take action, you might have doubts about something, but as long as you can cause yourself to take action, what ends up happening is you'll start getting some result. And strangely enough, your doubt factor goes down. Your insecurity seems to mute, if you will. And you keep taking action, and then all your beliefs and stuff around why you're feeling doubtful or insecure, they mean nothing, right? So one of the things we mentioned and we talked about briefly last night was the whole idea about changing your beliefs. But I think that's a really important thing to do. But also opening up to the possibility that your beliefs are part of the problem, right? Even having belief can be the problem, because whether you believe it's true or not true is irrelevant. Just take action and watch what happens, mm-hmm. right? And then your belief will come as a result of taking that action, which is cool. All right. And that breeds confidence, which is another opposite feeling of doubt and insecurity. So
I find too that taking action in a good way distracts me from wallowing in my own self-pity. Right? Because I'm busy doing something else.
Yeah. And especially if the action is revolved around being in service to someone else, it is virtually impossible to be down, depressed, and doubtful if you are actually doing something of value that's helping somebody else get what they want.
Totally.
It feels good, just no matter how you look at it, right?
Well, and that was an example last night. One of our members mentioned that they quit doing something that they loved. And that's when depression started setting in.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. And that gets to our fourth element, which we'll come at in a moment. So we have faith, and then we have action, right? Which are the first two antidotes. And then the third one is the antidote to ignorance, right? So that ignorance, and when I say ignorance, I mean like true ignorance. I mean like choosing not to look, basically. So instead of that, what we want to do is go into insight, okay? So the third antidote is insight. And that what that really means is to know, or to choose to believe, if you will, open up to the possibility that what you're going through, the doubts and insecurities and even the depressive state, must have a purpose from a more universal perspective, right? Like in 2005, I was diagnosed, into a depression. Well, the diagnosis didn't take me to depression, but I was diagnosed with depression because I just found myself in a place that I couldn't even imagine that was so dark, right? End up being the biggest gift. Like, holy cow, such insight came out of opening up to the consciousness of that experience, right? Mm-hmm. So faith, action, insight, okay? And the last one, if you remember, the last inhibition, if you will, or demon, is isolation, separation, division, holing up, disappearing, withdrawing, right? Not bothering. And when we go into ignorance, our brain will actually create and support reasons for us to become isolated. And then that's when the real poison seeps in, right? Really, really seeps in. And so the antidote for that is love, okay? We need bonding and connection. Mm-hmm. Okay. So even though you feel like withdrawing, if you can cause yourself to go out and have meaningful conversations with people who care, then it will begin to right the ship, if you will. So faith, the four antidotes basically are faith, action, insight, and love, which with our little wordplay spells a word that most people are scared of.
Fail.
Yeah, so we must in order to overcome doubt, right? Overcome doubt, transcend it, be the victor of it, triumph over it, right? Mm-hmm. To slay those demons, like to defeat them, if you will. We need to be open up to the possibility of failing, right? And fail is a highly charged word. So what we like doing on occasion is taking words that have a negative association and basically apply the principles that I learned in Aikido of blending with the energy to resolve peace. We take fail and we say, all right, faith, action, insight, and love, right? That's what risking failure offers me the opportunity to do. So very cool how that all came out last night. I love it.
Yeah, so if people are feeling doubtful, they can write down these 4 words and engage with that process anytime they're doubting themselves.
Absolutely. Try it on for themselves.
Cool.
And that's a really important part of it is don't take my word for it. Go make an effort. And there are practices that you can do to, like, how do I develop faith?
I think we're going to have to make posters for these.
What's that?
We're going to have to make posters for these.
Do you know anybody who might be?
I might know somebody.
Something like that.
I don't have a goatee to stroke.
You don't have a little philosopher fuzz.
That's right. Philosopher fuzz. Cool. Okay, well, let's wrap this up. If anybody's interested in more about what we do at Sipsang, we're going to send them over to sipsang.com.
Yeah. And
they can request a conversation with you.
Yeah, you bet.
To find out if they're a good fit and to find out if Sipsang's a good fit.
Absolutely.
And we should also let people know that we have a document, 85 signs that you're a Sipsanger.
Surefire signs. Whoop.
Surefire signs. And so if they contact you, you're going to send that to them as well.
Yeah, they go and fill out when you go there and it says request information, it'll just ask you for some quick information. Send it off. And when you do that, you'll be automatically offered up this.
You've already connected it. I'm impressed.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I like it. Sweet. All right. Well, until next week.
All right. Thanks, Jade. Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Have a super weekend. Bye now.